The Dragon Story. For my grandson William, on his 11th birthday. Chapter 1. The Best Almost Birthday Present Ever. William had been counting down the days until his 11th birthday with the kind of intensity you can imagine any birthday boy would have, expecting lots of presents. In fact, just to be sure they knew, each day he would let his family know how many more days there were left until his birthday, hoping that would spur them on to get even more presents. Today, November 27th, was just 2 days before his birthday, and this year Thanksgiving was just 1 day before it, which meant it was tomorrow. But what was he most excited for? Presents, of course. He loved getting presents. With a lot of energy getting excited for tomorrow and then the next day, Bub's mom urged him to go outside and play. "Why don't you go take Appa out?" his mom said. "It looks like he could use a bit of running around," she added. Appa was Bub's Christmas present from 3 years before, a cute, super-friendly mini Aussie shepherd. "Get your boots, jacket, scarf, and hat on and go play with him," his mom added. But Bub had another idea. "I wonder if I can catch some fish." There was a pond in the woods behind their house, and he loved fishing there in the summer, but had never tried to catch any fish in the fall before. His mom gave him a sideways glance, but then said, "Well, go ahead then, and see if you can catch one, but take Appa too." And with that, Bub got dressed, called Appa, and trudged out into the cold. With his fishing rod in hand, Bub stood on his favorite log for about 20 minutes waiting for a fish to take a nibble on his hook. But his line wasn't doing anything. So after a while, and disappointed, he decided to turn back home. But then heard what sounded like a hiccup. A strange one mixed with a sneeze. What was that? He thought. Even Appa stopped and stared in the direction from which the sneeze came. The sound came from the woods just beyond the pond. Then there was another sneeze, but a weird one, like a dog or something else. But what dog or other animal would be out here right now, he wondered. "Hello?" William called out, his fishing pole forgotten. Then the sound came again, followed by what could only be described as a baby's giggle, if that baby happened to be spitting out fire. William decided to check it out. Who or what could that be, he wondered. Following the noise, William pushed through a cluster of bare trees and started up the small hill behind the pond. He stopped to look around, which was hard because it was getting dark, making it very difficult to see. He swore he had heard something, though, so he wanted to see if anything was there. There was a large pile of stones up ahead, which the neighbor's tractor added to each summer. The only to find out what might be behind the stones, he thought, was to go see. Faithfully, Appa stayed right next to him as he continued to walk up the hill to see if anything was there. He kept walking. He looked left, then right, and then ahead, but nothing. He then circled and turned around to the back of the stones, and still nothing. So he decided to turn back, and with a shrug of his shoulders said to Appa, "Let's go." But just as he turned to start walking back, he heard it again, but this time more loudly. There was definitely something there, and it definitely was a sneeze. But from what? He decided to go the rest of the way around the boulders, and just as he was making the final turn, right there, right in front of him face to face, he saw something that made him drop his fishing pole and take a deep breath, and then stop breathing, his eyes wide open. There, curled up and in the crevice of the stones, in what looked like a nest made of singed twigs and melted rocks, was a baby. A baby dragon. Yes, you heard me right. A baby dragon about the size of their Thanksgiving turkey. Its scales were a shimmering purple that changed to blue when it breathed, and 2 tiny horns, no bigger than golf tees, poking out from the top of his head. And then a thin trail of smoke from its nostrils every time it hiccuped, which was approximately every 20 seconds now. "Oh boy," William whispered. The dragon then blinked at him with his 2 eyes that looked exactly like 2 golden marbles. "Oh boy," he said again. The baby dragon hiccuped again, this time setting a nearby leaf on fire. William quickly stomped it out while the dragon watched. "We better watch out. We don't want any fires out here." "Where's your mom?" William asked, looking around nervously. He'd read enough books to know that if baby dragons were around, that usually meant mama dragons were too, not far. But he didn't see the mother dragon anywhere. Mama dragons tended to be protective of their offspring, so I better watch out. The baby dragon then made a sad little chirping sound, curling its tail around itself. And that's when William noticed it was shivering. "Are you cold, little guy?" William asked. Hungry? Both? It was getting dark, and soon William wouldn't be able to see his way through the woods back to his house. "Wait here," he said, realizing then that he was talking to a dragon who probably didn't understand English. He laughed at himself, saying, "Just stay," again, holding his hand up in a gesture like he would give to Appa when he wanted him to stay. William ran home faster than he'd ever run before, barely seeing the trail back, and burst through the back door, right to the refrigerator. "I have to get something for the dragon," he thought. He must be both cold and hungry. "What are you doing?" his mom asked. I just, he replied, really not saying anything. "What?" his mom asked again. But then he was gone. With a handful of chicken, he raced into the living room, grabbed 2 blankets, found his flashlight on the table, and ran out the back door before his mom could ask again what he was doing. "William!" his mom yelled out the kitchen door. But he was gone, racing back to where he had left the little dragon. The baby dragon was exactly where he'd left it, though now trying to catch his own smoke rings, looking remarkably like a puppy chasing its tail. When it saw William, it made a squeak that sent sparks flying. "Oh no, buddy," he said. "Don't do that. We don't want any fires here." Bub then pulled out the chicken and put it on the plate and had brought with him right in front of the baby dragon. Within seconds, it was gone. "Oh my, you must have been starving," William said. It was now completely dark, and William knew he had to go home. But he couldn't leave the baby dragon alone in the cold. Worried, he made a nest out of the blankets he brought with him and nestled the dragon inside them. "I have to go home now, little buddy, but I'll be back first thing tomorrow," he promised. The dragon had already curled up in the blankets, sending up tiny smoke signals as it dozed off. That night William could barely sleep. He kept wondering if the dragon was okay, if it was warm enough, if it was still hungry, or if its mother was looking for him. Bub decided to call him Smokey, which he thought was both accurate and ironic, given that this was probably the only Smokey who actually started fires. When Thanksgiving morning came, William snuck out of the house before anyone else was up. He took with him a plate of bacon he'd convinced his mom to cook the night before, having said, "I think I will be starving when I get up." But when Bub got back to where he had left Smokey the night before, Smokey was gone. The blankets were still warm and slightly singed, but no dragon. His heart sinking, William followed a trail of tiny scorched footprints in the dirt and leaves that led further into the woods. That's when he heard it. A sound like a giant bellows mixed with a tornado. The trees at the edge of the woods swayed, and there, landing in the morning mist, was a dragon the size of their car. Its scales shifted from deep purple to midnight blue, and its golden eyes were exactly like Smokey's, only bigger, the size of pool balls. Smokey came bounding out of the woods, leaving little smoking footprints in the frost-covered leaves, and jumped into his mother's waiting wings. The mother dragon then looked at William, and he could have sworn she winked at him before carefully picking Smokey up in her giant, massive claws. Just before they took off, Smokey hiccuped one last time, but instead of a spark or smoke, a perfect little flame shot out, forming the shape of a heart that hung in the air. William stood there watching until they disappeared into the clouds, his grin so wide it hurt his face. Later during Thanksgiving dinner, when everyone was sharing what they were grateful for, William simply said, "New friends," and smiled at the slightly scorched patch of grass he could see through the window. That year, when William blew out his birthday candles just 2 days later, he didn't need to make a wish. After all, what could be better than having a dragon for a friend, even if it was just for one extraordinary day? Unless, he thought, he could have a dragon for a friend for even more than just one day.